going to read you a story this evening. In the old and rain-soaked kingdom of Alderheim, there was born a strange little boy named Odelric Thorne. Now, Odelric was not born wicked, to make matters far too convenient. The trouble with Odelric was that he arrived like everyone else, small and slightly malformed, one might say. He was sort of very austere and slightly, well, a little loud, and perhaps it could be construed that he was needy and profoundly unimpressive. His mother, softer and overtly protective, wrapped the boy in affection thick enough to stop him ever properly growing around criticism. He wished to become one of the great royal illustrations of Alderheim, whose murals depicted gloriously. Twice he applied to the Grand Academy of Fine Butchery and Decorative Importance. Twice the Academy politely informed him that while his sketches of buildings showed promise, his drawings of those things were slightly lackluster. The drawings of people he did resembled startled potatoes draped in curtains, indeed. Now, Odelric instead chose grievance, and grievance, as we all know, once fed regularly, grows like a mould in a cellar. So the failed little painter drifted into the vast and crowded capital city of Bath, where angry men gathered in taverns to explain why all their failures were secretly someone else's fault. Young Odelric listened carefully. He listened to the hatred that drifted through the air like chimney smoke, for example. Minorities were blamed. Mysterious hidden councils beneath the earth were blamed. Everyone, in fact, was blamed except the people actually speaking. In the city came the great Continental War. Odelric enlisted eagerly. For the very first time in his unhappy life, he discovered structure. Uniforms flattened uncertainly. Orders removed the burden of independent thought. This war was long, muddy, absurd, and catastrophic. Millions died for reasons later summarized in pamphlets by men who remembered the safety indoors throughout the whole affair. Yet, eventually, as was inevitable, Alderheim lost. And to Odelric, this defeat felt impossible. Not tragic, impossible. For now, he had begun constructing inside his own mind a grand and shimmering mythology. A mythology in which he personally belonged to the portrayed and glorious people. Most citizens, exhausted and starving, accepted the defeat of this war with sorrowful resignation. Odelric did not. No, he preferred a far more dangerous explanation. Betrayal. Somewhere, he insisted, hidden enemies had sabotaged the kingdom from within. So soon he gathered followers. Followers indeed, not sensible followers, naturally. They stormed through the streets, waving banners and shouting patriotic stuff which Odelric really thought to himself really meant something. The rebellion collapsed. almost immediately. Several people died. Odelric was arrested inside the Blackstone Keep prison. Odelric did not reflect upon his failures. He rehearsed them. When he wrote these things down, he called the Book of Uncertain Truth, despite containing remarkably few truths and exhausting amount of certainty. People later made the mistake of imagining Odelric some kind of dark genius. He was not. He was simply relentless. The true danger of the book he had written in that dark dungeon lay not in intellectual depth, but in recognition. The recognition of who he was. And outside the prison walls, the kingdom deteriorated. Inflation devoured savings. Governments collapsed weekly. Citizens lost faith in institutions. This was all the result of Odelric, who was released from Blackstone Keep. He returned not as a disgraced fool, which indeed he might be have been construed as, but as a self-declared martyr. Years passed. Years passed. The Black Banner movement expanded. Parades filled the streets. Drums thundered. They thundered away. They just didn't stop for Odelric. Soon Odelric rose to the supreme power over Alderheim. He historically proved expensive. For once inside the great citadel of government, Odelric began transforming grievance into machinery. New enemies were named. New books were made, written, and vanished from libraries. They vanished. Books vanished from libraries. Neighbors disappeared quietly in the night. The Black Banner ministers spoke endlessly of purity, renewal, destiny, and national birth, and the kingdom became obsessed with efficiency while carefully avoiding discussion of what it actually was becoming efficient at. He redesigned cities, redesigned culture, redesigned truth. Children vanished. Families vanished. As the furnaces beyond the dark forests burnt day and night beneath ash-filled skies. Yet still, machinery continued because ordinary officials kept stamping ordinary paperwork. As years passed, war returned to the continent once more. At first, Odelric appeared unstoppable. Kingdom after kingdom fell before the Black Banner. Armies, crowds roared with his name. Newspapers described destiny unfolding. But destiny, rather rudely, turned out to possess problems, and the kingdom just collapsed inward like wet cardboard. Wet cardboard. Cities burnt. Allies vanished. Generals lied. And deep beneath the capital, inside an enormous underground fortress of concrete and paranoia, Odelric retreated from reality entirely. Faith replaced strategy in Alderic's mind. Odelric retreated into himself. He found delusion replaced governments. He knew that in himself, but never admitted it. The clever little grievance collector had finally become what he had always secretly feared he would be. a failed painter, and a ridiculous old man. Outside, Alderheim crumbled into ruin. The Black Banners fell. The furnaces were discovered. The full horror emerged, blinking into the daylight, while the surviving citizens insisted with astonishing speed that they had personally opposed everything all along. Odelric Thorne ended his own life. Not upon a battlefield, not dramatically atop a building tower, but hidden, underground, like a rat trapped in the floorboards. And for many years afterwards, parents told their children, and told them well at night before they slept, the tale of Odelric and his failed ambition. They told future generations this: beware the man who offers easy questions to complicated pain. Beware the man who transforms neighbors into symbols. Beware the man who mistakes applause for truth. For Odelric was never a great sorcerer, never a dark genius, never a chosen prophet. He merely was a small and bitter man, a failed painter, who learned that performance could masquerade as destiny if shouted loudly enough. And because enough people wished desperately to believe him, entire kingdoms burnt to prove the point.
No, no, no.
And we all could live happily ever after, if, and only if, you could give us a good clicking.
Shakanaka.